flow state is an optimal, it's the most optimal mindset that we're in. It's the most efficient brain and mind processing known to us. And when we drop into a flow state, we tend to almost have a magical experience. It's not magic, but there's a sense of awe that comes with it. There's a distortion of time. And when I speak to great athletes, people that are at the top of their game at what they do, most people report that it's somewhere between 10 to 15% of the time, which means that the majority of the time, even the best in the world, they're working. They're not dropped into this easy flow process where everything's proficient. They're working, and they're working really hard to try to bring their mind to a positive mindset. And that's where the real work is, because if you can hang out in a positive mind long enough, the idea is that you'll slip into no mind.
Shouldn't I be happy? You carry me, my head in your hand. Now I see, yeah, I must be. When you're done with us, when you had enough, when your impossible world has empty like a broken cup, it's just us, it's just us. What's my definition? When am I best before? When do I expire? Send your message, it was delivered. What's that sound? The sound of the paper.
I think we play games for a lot of reasons. I think there's obviously a lot of psychology involved and just the basic reward mechanisms that you feel good when that dopamine comes in there and you have fun, you win. It's a way for us to win on a way that doesn't have a lot of risk involved, but we can really get that psychological thrill. And I think with Gran Turismo, it offers that sense, especially now where you can play online with other people, that you really sort of reaffirm the skills that you've refined and you say, well, I really am better than that other person. And it's a safe environment for us to test ourselves, I think, and to challenge ourselves and to experience what we're actually capable of.
大井隆さんっていうレーシングドライバーが、やっているドライビングスクールがあるんですね。そこを、僕がたまたま何回か手伝いに行ったんですけれども、その時に、 たまたま参加してたのが山内さんなんです。で、なんか質問ないですかって言ってこう手を挙げたのが山内さんで、多分ゲームを作る上で疑問に思ってる車の挙動だとかそういうことの質問だったと思うんですけれども、答えることができなかったんですね。でそこでなんででしょうねっていう話になって、そこで名刺交換をしたのが山内さんとの接点というか一番最初の出会いです。去年ですね、ニルで、スタートラインに並ぶ時にみんなレーシングスーツを着ていこうって言って、レーシングスーツを着ようとしたんですね。したら僕のレーシングスーツないんですよ。であれレーシングスーツないとかって言ってたら僕のスーツを山内さんが着てました。結構だからレース前になるとナーバスになるというかこう緊張するタイプって思ってます。あとタバコ吸う回数がすごい増えて
Meeting for the first time and hearing that he races, and not only races, wins. I mean, wins a lot. That's kind of incredible.
He's a really good driver. I mean, I was surprised when I drove with him at Motegi that first time at Gran Turismo 2, and yeah, I just go, whoa, he's, it's like, I get it now. Now I know why this game is so accurate and so representative of the real thing. The guy who created it, he knows how to drive.
そうですね、僕はグランツーリスモでドライビングを覚えてから実際にリアルカーを走らせ始めたので、グランツーリスモで感じていた車との一体感、自分の手足のようになって、走っていく感じっていうのが、リアルカーでも起きる、リアルなレーシングカーでも起きるっていうことが分かって、ある意味ちゃんと裏が取れたというかね、自分自身で体験することができたので、そのあたりは自信を持てる部分なんですよね。
He races, which puts him at a different level, so he understands what he's doing. So it's not just simulating it, he actually has a reference point of what real racing is about. And when you have that reference point and you figure that that's going in the game, You know, we were just in a review a few minutes ago with him on a project we're working in, and he gave insights to things that he thought that, I think this would be important because this is what you would actually need to do for the real car. So he can pull reality from his experiences and apply it to the application of a project. I think pioneers that are doing something unique and new, people want to listen to. He's proven. He has a pedigree that I think gives him a lot of leeway to do some unique things.
Question 12. The game is nearly perfect. What else do you think you can improve on? What else is there left to do?
中学時代の思い出というのはとにかく僕の友達たちっていうのは刺激的だったんですよね。で毎日毎日その友達たちと、どっちがかっこいいことができるのかっていうことをこう競争してたような気がします。でどれもが面白いやつでどれもがすごいやつでそんな中で14歳の時に映画を作ろうということで映画を撮り始めたんですね。ただ今ほどいい機材はないですから当時は8ミリのフィルムでした。僕はこんな小さな子供の頃から家中の壁には真っ白な画用紙が貼られていてで僕は好きな絵をそこに描くことができたんですね。で全てを描き尽くすと親がその紙をいつの間にか全部また白い紙に変えてくれていたそういう家でしたからそんな中で僕が、デザインというものあるいは絵を描くというものに対して何かこう育っていったんじゃないかっていう気がします。
Kazunori was joined Sony Music Entertainment Japan, which was the music company, and obviously, publishing and producing music. And Sony Music Japan at that time had a small video game group producing games for Nintendo and Sega systems. So he joined Sony Music Entertainment Japan, became one of the young member producing titles for those systems.
で僕は正直びっくりして俺がゲーム作るのっていう感じだったんだけども、ちょっと考えてみたら自分自身のバックグラウンドも含めてビデオゲームは確かに作れるなと思ったんですよね。
Back in the early 90s, when Sony was first starting to think about a PlayStation console, Kazunori wanted to produce this car game that he wanted to produce since he was 15 years old. And he approached the Sony executives and the people in charge of the games at the time and explained to them what he wanted to do. But they really weren't interested in a car game. They presumably weren't car people, and they didn't think that a game that technical or that focused would really sell.
でそのあたりから確かにビデオゲームを作るっていうのは企業にとっては投資だからそんな簡単に自分の好きなものが作れるわけじゃないんだなってことは分かりました。あるアイディアを思いついて、それは具体的には、別の装いを持ったビデオゲームでそれはその当時ヒットしていたビデオゲームのような装いを持ったビデオゲームの中にグランツーリスモを隠すっていうことだったんですね。でそれがモータートゥーングランプリというタイトルで外から見ると、任天堂のよく売れていたビデオゲームのように見える。でも中で行われるトライ僕らができる試行錯誤というのはグランツーリスモにつながるものでした。
The amazing car physics engine was so realistic, and some industry people noticed what Kazunori team was doing, and became something to watch out for. And of course, his team's third project was the Gran Turismo. So when we waited long enough to have something tangible that we could show, That was the early prototype of the Gran Turismo with the amazing, never seen before reflection mapping of the car. When the car spins, the lighting, reflections changes, and was amazing.
ソニーのエグゼクティブの皆さんもまあすごくなんていうのかな、僕に自由を与えてくれたというか、そうだったら会社を作って好きなようにやればいいよっていうふうにある意味こうリリースしてくれたんですよね、僕を。だからそれはすごくありがたかったですね。もう戦う必要はなくて、あとは自分と仲間たちで好きなように勝負すればいい。そうですね、僕の父がものすごく、登山家でもあり冒険家でもあり、自然との関係を、大事にする人というよりは、自然と共にある人だったので、僕もそのように育てられました、自然と。これなんかクヌギだからちょっと今時期が早いけど、これを蹴るとね、これを蹴ると振動が上に伝わってカブトムシが驚いて落ちてくる。ガンと蹴った後にふって待ってるとパサッて落ちる音が聞こえる。でそこがカブトムシが落ちてきた場所ですね。それをこういう木を見つけたら全部繰り返す。森のすべての木で繰り返す。そうするとどんどんカブトムシやクワガタが取れる。その昆虫を取るっていうのはまさにハンティングですよね。でそのハンティングの快楽っていうのは、例えばドライビングにもつながるしレースにもつながるし、あるいはゲームを作る前のデータキャプチャリング、撮影だとかそういうものにも全てつながっていますよね。全てはなんか男の狩猟本能というかそこにつながってくると思いますね。 コースを作る、そのやり方なんですけれども、まず僕らがこの取材チームが、この場所に行きます。で、全体の景観をまず感じるところから始まりますね。全体の景観を感じ、いよいよそれぞれの、素材を撮影することになるんですけれども、こういった路面であるとか、ああいった縁石であるとか、カリフォルニアの光だとすごく分かりやすいですね。僕らが撮るイメージ、テクスチャーというのは、こういった路面のテクスチャーから、こういった縁石、それからこの外側のね、コース外のテクスチャー、そういうものもイメージで撮ります。あとレーザーでスキャンされる、サーフェスというのはもちろんこれら全てがレーザーでスキャンされるわけですね。こういった凹凸、ひび割れ、このレーザースキャナー上ではちゃんと凹凸になって、でも写真も大事だし測定も大事なんだけれども、もしかすると一番大事なのはここに来る制作チーム、大体20人ぐらい来ますけれども、みんながこのコースのね、この光、空気、雰囲気を掴んで帰るってことでしょうね。それが一番大事かもしれないね。
コロッセオの中なんですけど、実際はサーキットがコロッセオの外側を走るので中が見えることは決してないんですけれども、今後何が進化するかわからないので、実は中もちゃんと外ほどではないですが見られても大丈夫なぐらいちゃんと作られています。で、本当はここは映ることはないぐらい見えない場所ですが、こうやって進化した時にいつでも対応できるようにちゃんと作っているところが、データをこう全体的に見ても結構テンションが上がって好きな部分です。
There are scenes on Gran Turismo and there's a camera shot of a beautiful car set in a beautiful location, just sort of moving around in different locations, looking at the car. And you look at it and you could sort of sit there for a good 5-10 minutes just staring at the screen, and it's a work of art. But when it comes down to it, it's just code, but I think it's a bit more than that, really.
They say code is poetry. That's a computer science term. When you learn to program, that's one thing they say. It should be like poetry. It changes you. It makes you think about cars differently. It makes you think about the world differently. I've learned so much about other countries and other forms of racing and other people. I've read the documents that go along with the cars and the tracks, and you learn so much, and it makes your world so much bigger after you've experienced the game. But really, if you say, what is the game? It boils down to these lines of code.
One of the interesting aspects of modern origami is that in many cases, you can't break it down into step-by-step processes like the traditional origami. All the folds have to come together almost at once. So with that type of design, we'll very often spend some time putting in all the creases ahead of time and then try to bring all of them together at once. It's a skeleton. It's a scaffolding. And a crease pattern captures the important elements of something, but it rarely captures every fold in the figure. And so it's less than a blueprint. It's more of the abstract essence. I need to get from the subject to a folded representation of the subject, and I can break that down into steps. And the first step is to figure out what are the elements of the subject that I want to replicate in the paper. Because any representational origami, it's not a perfect photograph or a perfect sculpture. It's not a perfect reproduction. We have to pick certain elements that are going to call that subject to the mind of the viewer when they see it. One way of describing the abstraction is making a stick figure or a drawing, because that tells me how many legs and how long they are and so forth. And that's a pretty easy step, because we can draw stick figures pretty easily. That's our first step of drawing when we're a child. But going from the stick figure to a paper shape that has the same structure, that's the step that is particularly amenable to mathematics. I began to see a lot of these principles in origami that seemed very much like the principles that governed engineering, and that one could use mathematics to do better art. There's really deep connections between the meshing problem of 3D gaming and the crease pattern problem of origami design. And so there are origami algorithms that are basically meshing algorithms that say represent this surface by a bunch of polygons that satisfy certain rules about their positions and angles. What we're trying to do as an origami artist, what Kazunori is trying to do as a video game, is create an experience inside someone else's brain, and so you kind of have to put yourself in there. And so the decisions that we make in this abstraction process are not just what to include, what to omit, but also what to exaggerate, what to put in that's not actually there, but that will give the desired result in the viewer's mind.
You know, in everything we do here, everybody's always amazed that, you know, we still sculpt full-size clay cars. Every day we do that here. We have a set of craftsmen, sculptors that do it, and we'll mill the car, bring it back onto a plate, we'll model it by hand, we'll white light scan it, bring it back into the tube, tune it again, and kind of go back and forth. It's kind of a little bit of a artistic ballet between digital and analog. And we may build a polygonal model, math model, mill it out in one of our giant mills, but at the end of the day, it's a craftsman hand cleaning the model down, getting the lines just right. I think at the end of the day, it'll always be touched by the human hand to make it, or give it that soul, I guess.
I started working out of my mom's garage, just driven to, you know, to get my hands at shaping. I used to strip down old longboards, and that's how I kind of started. I've been doing it since the summer of 1973, so this will be going into my 5th decade of shaping boards. As a shaper, you know, the holy grail is like when a customer brings a board to you and it's a magic board and he says, you know, can you replicate this exact board? And so that eventually started down that CNC road and the accuracy, and then being able to obtain, you know, empirical data that you could always go back to reference. This has been like an 8-year process for me to build this machine. I originally had no background in CNC technology or CAD/CAM technology, so it was a long project for me. What's common nowadays is they have the turnkey shaping machines that you could purchase, and you're basically writing programs in 2D. The algorithm formulates the 3rd dimension. You're not really working in true 3D. The way I actually do is I take my hand shapes and actually digitize the entire surface. And so it maintains the natural hand-shaped, you know, I don't know what you would call it, just a non-algorithmic look to it. It has more of a hand-shaped, non-digital appearance to it. Right now what I'm doing is just basically taking down all the tool path that the CNC machine has cut with the program that I've written for the board. Aesthetic is really nice, but you know, I try to add little style points to the boards for sure, but the rider is the one that has a soul, and the rider and the board have to connect, and you know, if that ultimately if I fail at that point there, you know, I basically failed as a shaper.
フィジックスエンジンというのは、まあ、車が車であるために必要なさまざまな振る舞いを行うためのなんていうのかなモデル、まあ、数式の塊、それを作る作業ですね。フィジックスエンジンを作るというのは。
僕自身もこう20年間こう、まあ、その車とは何かというテーマをずっと、追いかけながら、勉強しながらグランツーリスモの最初のから今の6までずっと続けています。
It really mimics real driving. It really explains understeer, oversteer. Not just explains, it demonstrates it. I mean, I could talk understeer, oversteer to someone here, you know, at a restaurant or something, just randomly. They're not gonna know what the heck I'm talking about. But when I go to the game, these cars do that.
私たちは経験的にこう、まあ、アクセルを踏めばまっすぐ走るし、ハンドルを切ればその方向に曲がっていくっていうのを経験的に知ってるんですけれども、そういう計算モデルにしなかったんですね。ドリフトってご存知ですか？あれをやってる間というのは、車はこう例えば左に旋回してるんですけれども、ハンドルは右なんですよね。でこれを計算モデルの上でなんていうか、その倍分けを使って計算するのではなくて、全てを連続したその計算モデルの中で表現しようっていう。
There's so many variables that are involved in terms of just the contact patch that the tire makes with the asphalt. The different types of conditions. Obviously in Gran Turismo there's snow and dirt and asphalt. And they also have to take into consideration the controllers. It's an engineering project that is, Kazunori put it on par with the Apollo project. And as crazy as that sounds, I think he's probably right. It's a massive engineering undertaking.
プレイヤーのコントローラーを操作するパターンから判定するのではなくて、その車を構成するコンポーネント、タイヤですとか、まあ、サスペンションのバネですとか、エンジン、そういったものの一個一個をその、まあ、地道にというか愚直にというか一つ一つ計算していくというアプローチを取るしかありませんでした。でその結果として車はまっすぐ走ってちゃんと曲がるようになった。要するに結果から逆算したシミュレーションというかプログラムを作るのではなく、そのプロセスを計算したという感じですね。
There's a lot of history in objects that have existed and had another purpose. And bringing that energy, that previous energy, into a sculpture brings a lot of new, unexpected surprises together. I did start drawing probably before I could talk as a child. It was really very easy thing for me. And I remember my first studio space was actually the way back of the family station wagon, where my younger sister and I would sit with safety scissors and colored paper and crayons and all that, and that's how we went on our family trips. soon as I graduated art school, I took a full certified welding class, and it just seemed like the next logical step for me. I didn't really expect I would ever build a bridge or a building, but I really wanted to understand the medium. I wanted to understand all of the right ways to do it and how far it could be pushed. In my mind, it changed how I looked at things a lot. I no longer saw things as being broken or useless. I saw them as waiting to be repurposed or fixed or modified in some fashion. All of the giant figures were designed to represent different religions from around the world. I think what's kind of unique about the experience of these is from a distance you see a large silhouette, and as you approach you can start recognizing that there are items in here that are familiar to you, whether it's a spring or a kitchen faucet or a tool. There's a lot that people can relate to in these sculptures, and I think it's kind of amusing to discover these little bits. And I want people to just be drawn up into the magic of the sculpture and forget anything they know about reality. I want them to just think it's always been there, and they discovered it, and it was there for them. I think that really is the height of the artistic journey, is when a viewer is unaware that this has, 16 outriggers underneath the ground that are holding it up. They don't understand the engineering behind all of that, and they shouldn't. If I've done my job well, they don't even think about it. So I think similarly, to take a car out of the context of a parking lot and put it on a pedestal, you're forced to look at it as an artistic object and just see its physical characteristics.
初めて免許を取って車に乗った瞬間の感動っていうのは忘れられないですね。自分の体に本当に羽が生えたように、突然自分が行動できる世界がわっと広がるわけですよね。でその気になればどこまでも遠くまで行ける。でその時の感動って今でも覚えていて、で今自動車に乗る時にその都度感じる喜びっていうのも基本的に当時と変わらないですよね。なんか自分の体、自分の身体の能力がパッとこう拡張されて、で生身の状態ではできないこと、それはスピードだったり、あるいは遠くまで行くことだったりしますけど、そういうことができるようになるっていうのは、車を運転する上でものすごく大事な魅力の一つだろうと思いますね。それはまさにそうなります。車との一体感というのはグランツーリスモをプレイしている時にも完全に起きていて、で今この瞬間にリアタイヤがどれぐらい路面に設置しているのか、でどれぐらい設置しているのか、あるいは今タイヤのパフォーマンスのうちのどれぐらいを旋回に使っていて、あとどれぐらいスロットルが踏めるのかみたいなことは手に取るように分かりますよね。だからそう思います。グランツーリスモをやっていて乗れてきた時って自分でも分かるんですね。スッと入ってくる。で車と完全に一体になってしまう。でその時はもう4つのタイヤが今どんな状態なのかっていうのが完全に自分の体の一部のように感じられる、そういう瞬間はありますね。
first got on this track, I'd say I was 5. I grew up here. This is where I started my racing career. Dave helped me tremendously, just learning how to drive and just get me to that next level to start my career.
Let's go over some stuff real quickly though. On our board, remember our points of measurement. Say turning point.
Turning point.
Say apex.
Apex.
Release the car all the way to the exit.
Release the car all the way to the exit.
Right, release to the exit, and when we release to the exit, we get grip in the rear, right? Grip in the rear. Remember the whale's back I showed you? This is the whale's back. If you dive in too soon, it sends all your energy to the pit. We don't want to do that. We want to come in, sacrifice, touch, add, more, most. Sacrifice to be efficient, to be effective. What's effective? Fast. Momentum, carrying it uphill, right? All the way up. Let me have your helmet. Come here. Let's remember this. Watch, guys. Watch. 2 mechanisms. Watch what happens here. Watch. Feeding my chin, feed my hands. Feed my chin, feed my hands, right? Feed. That's going to prevent you from leaning, right? All the bite and grip comes from the outside tire. So we feed, right? Are you guys ready for your day?
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of sugar, tons of water.
Yeah.
Okay?
So
All
Mitchell
right.
is 15, and he is a Red Bull athlete. They picked him up about 2 years ago, so he was the youngest in their arsenal of athletes. And he transitioned in from go-karts to off-road racing, trucks, to open wheel, and now global rallycross. So he's got about 10 years of driving experience, but he doesn't even have a legal driver's license yet. So it's pretty cool.
I'm seriously thinking about doing an axle change. I think the car is loose.
He said something about it being loose, but he said it was great.
Then he said it was sticking, so it's the beauty of having a 7-year-old for your driver input. All right, front end's good. Cole, hand me the ratchet, son. I'm gonna change the rear width and yep, put foot tires on. We only got about 3. Thank you, sir. We only have about 5 minutes to the heat race.
So, how much you have invested in that car?
In the car itself or the entire program?
Program?
Embarrassed to say, but I do have my wife's buy-in, so I'm good. Upwards of 25 to 30 in terms of just capital cost, and then the operating expense becomes probably 1,000 to 1,200, barring no major incident. And with major incident, we can get into a couple thousand a weekend.
I mean, I can't remember the go-karting cost. I do know that it does get expensive even at a young age because a lot of the fathers would show up with 9 different motors for their little kids' go-kart for a race. And, you know, how do you compete with that? We'd have 1 and maybe a tired backup motor. So that's what we did. And when he transitioned into off-road trucks, that got expensive. I mean, that was probably, we were probably sinking $70,000, $80,000 just for a series in a little off-road truck. You have repairs and practices and motor rebuilds. Now that he is going into the rallycross, I honestly couldn't tell you how much that's gonna cost.
Look at my line, guys. Look at my line. Look what direction I'm headed. Come with me. Look at the direction. Turning point, apex, apex. What's an apex? Point of measurement. What's an apex?
Point of measurement.
What's an apex?
Point of measurement.
What's an apex?
Point of measurement.
Apex. Release.
All right, guys, and we are ready to start. Please go ahead. All right, we're doing a start.
Go a little faster, a little faster. Go faster, faster, faster. Keep it going, keep it going, keep it going.
It's so incredibly hard to get into motorsport, as anybody who's done it or tried to do it knows. It's one of the most expensive hobbies that you can find, and there's a certain mystique about a race car driver that is it's romanticized in a lot of ways, and for good reason. You have to be very lucky and very fortunate in so many different ways to make it. So to have something like Gran Turismo, where you can develop your skills in your living room, you can, for just a few $100s, there's a few games that can actually teach you something that applies that directly to a real world situation. Like the GT Academy, obviously, is a good example of that, where skills learned in the game have translated perfectly one-to-one with skills on the racetrack, the real racetrack.
Being a race car driver has been my dream since I was a young boy.
It would mean everything to be a part of the Nissan racing team.
My passion is to drive cars, and this is my opportunity.
To get that shot, to drive in front of people who matter.
I'm Donnie Jones, host of GT Academy. 400,000 Gran Turismo 5 gamers entered a contest, hoping their skills in the game will transfer to the track. Only the 16 fastest will fight for the ultimate prize: the prestigious red helmet and a shot at becoming a professional race car driver for Nissan.
These guys come, they've been racing on a game which is pure, which is, unless you're good, you can't go fast on that game. And we take them, and they've got no knowledge about what the world we're in, the world we're here at Silverstone. And we can then train them using the skills they've got from the game in the right way, so they haven't got any bad habits. We can teach them the right way to become racing drivers.
Get ready. Go!
When the guys win the competition, they then go on what we call the driver development program, which is a physical, mental driver coaching program. It's pretty intense, and they're going through physical exercise every day, mental coaching at least 2-3 times a week. They're on the simulator, looking at data, having driver coaching, as well as being out on the track in cars as well. So it's a pretty intense time that we work with them for 3 months to get them prepared and ready for their first race.
You know when you're doing something right when there's lots of people moaning about it viciously. It means that you're doing something to upset the establishment, and that's what we've done. But as we've progressed, people have realised these guys are genuinely fast, young racing drivers. And they're faster than some of their peers, but they've only raced for 1, 2, 3 years. And yet they're to the level or above the level of kids that have been racing for 15 years.
Well, for me, I have to say Le Mans, no? Le Mans, competing in Le Mans for the first time back in 2011 was very special, no? Dreaming to be in that race, and obviously then finishing second in the podium with the pole position in qualifying was a really great weekend for me, and you know, it was a dream become true, no? A dream come true for me. And for Nissan and for the GT Academy story was amazing. No? First time, first try in Le Mans, bam, in the podium.
Okay, if we'd have had one driver that was good, okay, it was luck. We've got a consistent group of drivers every year from different parts of the world that are really good racing drivers. This is not luck, this is genuinely, if you're a good gamer on Gran Turismo, we can make you into a good racing driver.
But GT Academy is, in my view, first and foremost, a life-changing program. It takes people from nothing, if you like, to something very, very special. It gives them the inner belief, it gives them the self-confidence, and it gives them the skills. Not just skills behind the wheel, but skills in front of camera, skills in PR. And it gives them all of that and makes of them professional race drivers.
I think as a child, being a racing driver was my ambition. I've dreamed of it before, but I can honestly say I've never dreamt that it would happen this way through playing Gran Turismo. I mean, who thinks of that?
僕が最初にグランツーリスモを作った時からの夢ではありましたね。こういうゲームを作ることでいずれグランツーリスモからレーシングドライバーが生まれるんじゃないかっていう期待は最初からしてました。そういう意図もありました。でただそれはなかなか実現しなかった、あるいはまあそれに気づかなかったのかもしれませんけれども、それがようやく GT アカデミーみたいなプロジェクトを通じて、それを証明するような若い、プレイヤーが現れていった。想像はしてましたけれども、彼らが実際に人生が変わり、で本物のレースで活躍し、で僕の目の前にいるっていうことがやっぱりちょっと信じられないですね。
Every time we meet is great, no? For me, it's like a big mentor for me. Every time I have meetings or chats or competing with him in Nürburgring 24 hours, it's a special moment, no? Obviously, every time I see him, I try to, you know, to spend most of the time with him, learning from him, and obviously is the creator of Gran Turismo, no? The simulator which make me a professional racing driver. So I have to, you know, I have to thank him everything. That's why I'm here today, and I don't know what to say.
で同時に思うのはルーカスにしても、ヤンにしてもそうなんだけれども、彼らが何かをこうアチーブしてってほしいとかっていう願いよりもね、僕は彼らが今後多分いろんな困難に直面するでしょう。でそれを僕はねやっぱりサポートしたいですよね。サポートし続けたいと思ってますね。
The awareness that in this arc towards high performance, towards mastery, that there is a dark side or there's real challenges to the spirit and to the psychology and to relationships, that insight typically comes from somebody who's been down that path. And the insight to be able to know that men who are pursuing something that's very important to them, that there's both a part that is glorious and to celebrate, and there's also a really challenging dark side to it, is really insightful. And if we're not careful, we can set people up for the ride and not take care of the other side of it. And to have that insight, to be able to support and challenge and provide opportunity, that's noble.
In Japanese, toge means canyon road or mountain road, the winding road, basically.
I wanna go far, do what you love, and I'll say, I wanna go far, this time. The wind in my face, I'll take my place among the stars.
We just went through the tunnel, and which was actually the starting point of my favorite toge road near my hometown. This is basically the place I learned how to drive. In 10 years ago, I was driving Canyon Road as for fun, and then I just had an opportunity to compete in the States. And back then, professional drifting wasn't that big neither. Like, it's not as big as mainstream racing. But it grows so much after 10 years, and I guess my dream came true that I'm now a professional driver. It's not like driving purely for fun. I have to beat other people, and I have a lot of sponsors, so I have to do well, stuff like that. So sometimes it's not only fun. Sometimes it's very difficult. But when I come to mountain road like this, it kind of always reminds me how much I enjoy just driving. My goal, past 10 years, to win the championship of my Formula D career, and then I achieved that goal 2 years ago, 2011. Now, another thing that I want to achieve is to have my car in the Gran Turismo, because Kazunori and all the other guys in Gran Turismo really picky about what kind of car they want to have the game. So if one of my race cars be in the game, that means I'm one of the good ones.
自動車メーカーのデザイナーが、何か車をデザインしよう作ろうと思った時に何をよりどころにして車のデザインをしていくのかっていうのはやっぱり常に悩ましい問題だと僕は思います。何だっていいっていう状態からデザインっていうのはできないので、過去にこういう名車があった、ああいう名車があった、こういう歴史があったっていうことを参照しながら、それに例えば 5%、10% のオリジナリティを加えて新しいものを創造していくっていうのは僕はすごく自然なプロセスだと思うんですね。だから今それが世界中で起きているというのはデザインっていう観点から言うとすごく自然なことだし、車のデザインというのはそうあるべきだと思いますね。
We really pay respect to what the guys did in the 30s and 40s and 50s, and though the racing cars get crashed, they get modified and changed a lot, and we see our job as actually putting it back to exactly how the cars left Lotus or Cooper or Ferrari back in the day. We study pictures, we get chassis drawings. The guys would just go to endless lengths to get something right. No, it is attention to detail and maybe a little bit obsessive. I think the people that made these cars were real artisans, and they've been doing it over a long period of time, and they just had so much experience on how to make proper steels. It's almost like a black art.
やっぱり基本だと思うんですね。で、もともと車って要は手作りだっ った時代があって、でそれから現在に至ってるんですけれども、もう全てが、機械化されていて、なんか無機質な、家電みたいな車になってきてるんですけれども、せっかくなんて言うんでしょう、その手で物を作るっていう技術がどんどんなくなっていってるんですね。だから、もう一回それを見直して、機械ではできないようなものを、味があるものっていいますか、ハンドメイドの味があるものを、要は機械化でされて作られた車と融合させて、よりいいものに。
自動車のことを知れば知るほど、自動車を作ってる人たちのことを知れば知るほど、彼らがこれまでやってきた、成し遂げてきたこと、百数十年の歴史の中で成し遂げてきたこと、あるいは現に今彼らがやっていることっていうものの凄さがやっぱりどんどん伝わってくるので、僕らは本当に少しでも手助けができたら、光栄だなって思いますよね。
Car design has as much about emotion and psychology as it does about hardware and real engineering. And it's that psychology and the emotional connection that I think in the game you get that is very, very different. I mean, to come across a rise and to see sun hitting you at a different point of view, to hear shifting inside the car, the very thing that you can imagine the car being as a designer, because a car designer has to use his imagination as part of that drives the creativity that he's doing. And so when you're drawing a car, you're thinking about, what do I want to see? What are the reflections I want to see happening on the side of the car? That's huge. In the game, you would see it. We did a whole project, a concept vehicle project around it. We spent probably 2 years just trying to make sure, do we understand the values, the attributes, the dreams of these different generations? And where are they? And it was interesting. When we talked to a lot of these kids, and we said, well, why don't you know who we are? And they said, you're not where we're at. And that was a daunting task. We think, well, we're advertising everywhere, we're racing teams, we're selling cars all over the place. How can we not be where you're at? And when you look at the impact of games and what they do, I mean, as a casual experience and lifestyle, these kids in games, they spend a lot of time in games. I mean, it's a place where they interact with each other, they socialize, they prove themselves, it's a recreation period of time. And so we thought, well, we're not really there.
So please welcome the president of Polyphony Digital and professional race car driver, Kazunori Yamauchi.
So we thought, well, why don't we design concept cars for games? Wouldn't that be kind of cool? What if we created the cars that we can't even build in reality in a game? What if we gave you the chance to drive a Corvette with camouflage on it before anybody else gets a chance to do it?
Starting today, everyone can drive a camouflaged Corvette test vehicle on Sony PlayStation's Gran Turismo 5.
When it came out in the game, the camouflage car initially, there was a little bit of a leakage beforehand, which wasn't planned or expected, so that was like, everybody breathed hard. But the game boards went crazy. I mean, something that was never expected to happen. It's like, now all of a sudden, people who never would have talked about Corvettes, we're talking about Corvettes. Designed simulators for Kazunori and the guys here in this studio, and we had them on the ground at the Detroit show in January. Those simulators, when driving the Corvette, were so in demand that it completely outstripped our ability to support it. We couldn't put enough people through the whole system. So there's a long, long line all around the whole exhibit for people wanting to drive the new Corvette. So I think we've had to adjust
and kind of move things on the fly because the response among the gaming community has been so profound and so significant.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the new Corvette.
We launched it simultaneously in Detroit, and they pulled a virtual cover off it on the game. Kazunori is very emotional about this. This is very personal to him. He needs to see the vehicle. He spent time in Detroit to go through the whole program with us, and he says, yes, this will go, we'll put this in the game. So it's not just anybody can build a car and throw it in the game and it's good to go. I believe their sense of, as enthusiasts, that they only want the best. So it was the right car, right time.
It's an interesting problem to think about anyway, and what would our ideal GT car be? But I don't know, for me, I think it's more in the pure sports car vein, but pushing technology and pushing design to a more advanced condition.
各自動車メーカーの皆さんと一緒にそれぞれの自動車メーカーの考えるグランツーリスモ sports car.
Some companies, they really celebrate their history and their heritage. We, Toyota, we tend to be looking more ahead, more down the road than behind us. So maybe there's something just in the spirit of our company, and trying to innovate. We're always trying to innovate and challenge. So I think there's some mindset that way.
僕らがそこに関わることで 新しい車がこの世の中に生まれる。で、それはきっと素敵なスポーツカーになる。そんなことを今進めてるんですよね。
Ultimately, we all want to make these cars, and you dream about them, and I think technology today, along with Gran Turismo, is like you could bring that closer to reality a lot quicker, for us as designers as well, and for I think consumers as well. So it's like making the dream reality, really,
でも新しい車を作る話っていうのはいくらでもアイデアが出てくるから。
Yeah, but we're talking about making new cars. There's just ideas never stop.
自動車っていうものが、もっと魅力的なものに進化していく上で、なんかほんの少しでも僕らが力になれたら、手助けできたら。そんな幸せなことはないと思ってますね。そこはグランツーリスモとは何かっていう話にも関わってくるところで、グランツーリスモは一つのビデオゲーム、ただそれだけなのかっていうことですよね。僕は常々言ってきたんだけれども、グランツーリスモっていうのは一つのビデオゲームなんだけれども、同時に何かの運動だと思っていて、グランツーリスモという運動だと思っていて、でその運動の過程が全てプレイヤーのもとにで僕らに出会った人たちにも影響を与えて、影響で 響いてくれた人たちがまたこう世界を変えていくというか、世界に変化を与えていくっていうそういうプロセスですね。だからムーブメント、運動、グランツーリスモは運動なんだっていう時の運動っていうのはそういう意味ですよね。
The creative expression, the ability to become so masterful at something and so thoughtful in the basic elements of how it works, that's when the artist in all of us can be expressed. Whether that's in a car, whether that's with a canvas, whether that's in a relationship or conversation, there's a creative process to be able to be fully here now. And that's, I think that's what we're all looking for, is to be able to be completely immersed in this moment. And when we can do that over and over and over again and live in this moment in a really high quality way with a very amazing tone, if you will, that's when we get to be close to our potential. And so a life or a professional career, a high performance career, is stringing together as many moments as possible with high tone to them. And are we able to slip into potentially something where we can have an artistic expression with?
He drew himself really cute. He says, well, this is better than the real Asano-san. He had some stubble back then.
写真を1枚撮らせていただいたので。
店主ですから。
いただきます。
To me, Kazunori is a guy who, like I said, he's a perfectionist, but to make a mark in this world. I think that's what he's driven to do that. I think he's already done that to a pretty, to a point with the Gran Turismo. I don't think he's quite satisfied yet. I think he wants to, I think he feels he's here for a reason, and, it's up to him to, fulfill his destiny, if you will.
Do you remember where you were December 23rd, 97?
僕もヨドバシカメラとかビッグカメラとかそういう大きなビデオゲームの量販店に行きましたね。で信じられないような長い列がそこにはあって、ただただ信じられない、それを遠くから見ていました。だからなんか達成感を感じてるとか、そういうなんか余裕もなかったっていうかね。でもすごく嬉しかったですよ。自分の見てるものは本当に信じられない。僕らもね、グランツーリスモの最初のグランツーリスモって結構長い時間作っていましたから、リリースする寸前までは本当僕らチームのものだったんですよね。で 温めてでもうギリギリまで自分たちの手元でホールドしていて、で最後にこうリリースしたんですけれども、そのなんか本当に自分たちだけのグランツーリスモがこう自分たちだけのものじゃなくなるっていうその瞬間はやっぱり確かに覚えてますね。そうですね、熱病にうなされるように集中してたとしか言いようがないですよね。だからなんかそれに集中することで同時に何かを失っているとかそういうことを何も考えなかったですね。とにかくいいものを作ってもうあそこまで行きたいっていうことしか考えてなくて、本当それだけですね。
Gain speed. Remain free. Take lead. free. Take me.